It's all intertwined. I really believe that your relationship with money is parallel to your relationship with yourself. And how you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you act is exactly the same way. We don't just work in a silo, right? How we do one thing is how we do everything. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's my message that I'm trying to share into this world via the podcast, is that money is not completely separate from who we are. It's a part of who we are. And again, we can't avoid it. We deal with it every single day. So let's work with it rather than against it.
Hi guys, I'm Kim Pangaro, and welcome to the Atomic Mommy Podcast. This is your podcast to understand everything and anything about parenting life, where each week I speak to special guests and cover even the most taboo of parenting topics. Before we dive in, remember you can find and follow the Atomic Mommy Podcast on iTunes and Spotify, or you can visit my website to listen in at www.atomicmommy.net. Now, let's get to it. Today's episode is sponsored by Matt O'Hare, New Jersey's top real estate agent.
Right now, more than ever, it matters who you work with. You need a buyer's agent that understands the market and is able to negotiate on your behalf without having to waive any contingencies. And also get you the credits required to buy down that volatile interest rate. And if you're a seller, you need a subject matter expert that knows how to market a home and leverage technology to get you an offer accepted over asking price. My name is Matt O'Hare, and this is what I do. Feel free to give me a call, 551-286-5771. I am licensed in both New York and New Jersey.
Today we have a special guest, and the topic is all about money. Our guest speaker today is Meghan Dwyer, and she is a certified financial planner and host of the Money Isn't Scary podcast. After spending 15 years watching women take a passive role in the management of their money, she's on a mission to help them stop playing small. By challenging the societal norms around women and money, Meghan aims to empower women to make money decisions out of a sense of abundance and confidence, rather than scarcity and fear. When Meghan isn't working, she loves running, writing, and being a mom to her 2 young boys. If you want to learn more, you can visit her website at www.moneyisantscary.com. And you can also follow her on Instagram and Facebook at Money Isn't Scary. Hi, Meghan. Thank you so much for being with me today and being my guest on my show. I am so excited to talk to you. I love your topic. I love how you want to talk about money and how it affects us. So I'm ready. So tell me, teach me everything that you know.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here too. Here's the thing that I find so interesting about money. Nobody talks about it. And that's the reason why we are so uncomfortable with it, especially women and especially moms, I feel like. We live in a culture where we were just not taught to like money. We were not taught to talk about money, right? I know from my personal experiences growing up, we didn't talk about money. I mean, it was like my dad did the bills one day a month, and we would, I remember going to the store with my mom and being like, can I get this toy? And she's like, no, we have to wait till your dad gets paid and whatever it is, right? And so you learn these like little messages about money from early on, but you don't really have the chance to kind of like process them and or like challenge them, whether those beliefs are real or not. So what I like to do is start to challenge those. So I am a certified financial planner. I've been in the financial services world for about 18 years now. And I have 2 little kids that are 5 and 7. And back in the pandemic, I was struggling, just like I think a lot of people were. And I started a podcast as a result. And the reason I started it was because, my husband had lost his job. I was working full-time from home. I had a 1 and a 3-year-old at the time. And I was like shopping for no reason. There was a reason, and that's what I want to dig into. But I was just, buying shoes because I was imagining myself being anywhere but where I was in that moment at that time. Right. And then I would feel this guilt and then this shame about it. And I just knew that if I'm feeling this, other people have to be feeling this too. Other women, other moms, that it was a tough time. And I think women are still struggling, right? As in the aftermath of all of that. But that's really how it was, how I started this podcast. And it was born because I really just wanted to share the feelings that I had around money with other people in hopes that they don't feel so alone.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because you are right. A lot of us do go through that. A lot of moms, a lot of women, we go through this shame, right? The amazing videos that we see of women and wives hiding their packages, right? On
Yes.
Amazon, right?
Oh,
you know,
the memes, yeah.
Yeah, the memes and things like that. And, you know, guilty as charged. I used to do the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And I think that when you talk about that, it's so important, because so many people don't realize that just that simple act is, in fact, being ashamed of the fact that you want to spend money.
Hiding it. Hiding is shame. Absolutely.
Exactly. And so I'm not sure exactly how I came to understand it. I can't even recall how I figured it out. Tell me how, you know, other than the pandemic, how you would help women figure that out.
Yeah. So I'm a financial planner, and in my day job, I work with all kinds of clients, but my favorite clients to work with are women. And you know why? Because I've seen a lot of women who are either widows or divorcees come to me, and they don't know anything. And now they have to start all over.
Wow.
And that was really my motivation for focusing on women. And then I kind of realized, well, wow, women, no matter where you are or what stage of life you're at, all women need help with this topic, right? Because finances are just a predominantly male energy thing. And
That's
yet,
correct.
At the same time, we are dealing with it every single day of our lives, right? And women, I mean, there's all these statistics out there that women are better at finances over the long term than men are. But we're, I think, more fearful, and we're more insecure about it. And I wanted to really dig into why, and why are women sort of letting somebody else or whoever it is, allowing them to let go of their power, or taking their own power away, or diminishing their own power around this. And so that was really kind of a light bulb moment for me at work, just realizing that there's so much of a need for financial empowerment. And the more I started to dig into this, I realized it's more, there's a component of education, right? And women were not taught this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody was taught it, frankly, but but especially for women, because we're taught to, be teachers and nurses and be, secretaries and be in more administrative positions, right? And now we're at a stage where women can have it all, right? Mm-hmm. And we're struggling as a result of that, right? So women are managing, full-time jobs and careers and kids and so many other responsibilities, and it's not an easy thing to do. So I just feel like there's a a foundational knowledge of financial education that needs to be taught in schools, and it's not taught in schools. And there's also a foundational understanding of your relationship with money that just needs to be discovered. And that is such a big component to the financial advising world and financial planning world that I think is so often overlooked, because you can go into a relationship with a client, with an advisor, but if you still have those scarcity stories and those mindsets and those beliefs that, maybe weren't even yours, maybe they were your parents or something that you just inherited, but, or things that you heard, like money doesn't grow on trees, or just some of these, more common stories that we hear. If you don't work through that yourself, you're never going to truly appreciate the value and the guidance that you get from a financial advisor. I think that your brain's going to kind of get in the way, and you're going to struggle.
Yeah, you're right. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a personal story. It's extremely personal.
Yeah.
I hardly ever talk about it because it was such a dark time for me. But you said something that really resonated personally. So you said that, our parents really never talked about money. And that's so true. I tell my daughters that. I have 4 daughters. I tell them that all the time, that my own parents never taught me the value of a dollar, or how to even earn that dollar, or why it was so important to know the value of the dollar, right?
Yep.
And as a young teenager, my mom, she got me a credit card. Worst mistake ever for a teenager, right? Who's in love with shoes, no less. So I went into a lot of debt very early on. And when I say a lot, I don't mean like 2,000 or 5,000. I mean about 30,000 at just 16 years old with a part-time job, trying to go to college after that, and no idea how to get it done. And then a couple of years later, still in debt, had my kids, got married, and then got divorced, still in all that debt, trying to figure out. All of my money went towards the debt, collection fees, legal fees, and I couldn't figure out how to get out of that at that time. It felt like a sort of doom around this money.
It's paralyzing too.
Yeah,
because there's shame. There's shame in that. Our culture tells us to have shame around it.
That's right. And so I wanted to ask you this question because it took me a long time, A, to get out of it, B, to get out of my own head about the shame around the money, and C, the fact that I now had to teach my daughters about this money mystery, which is really what I call it, a money mystery. So tell me about the areas, like the weak areas that you find that most moms or women, or even young teenage women who don't really know about money, and what we can do to sort of like navigate that.
Yeah. And these are some of the things I talk about on my podcast a lot, because it's so much in my mind less about the numbers, yet even though that's what culture stresses, right? That's like the kind of like male side of the brain that is that energy is like black and white and right and wrong and numbers, right? But it's really about connecting with yourself and understanding what's really underneath this, right? And so it wasn't until I started to, say that example, like during the pandemic when I was, buying shoes to fill this void, that it was never going to fill, right? It wasn't until I actually like dug several layers beneath the surface that I started to recognize what was really going on. Like, what was I trying to use those shoes to compensate for, right? I was lonely. I was terrified. I was overwhelmed. There were so many other things there, and I was trying to buy something to lift me up and to make me feel better, kind of a quick fix, right? I think what we're culture doesn't tell us is that what fills everybody's cup is different. Our culture tells us that there's success looks a certain way. It's money. It's the big house with the white picket fence. It's the success. It's the status, right? Or the roles that we play, or all of those that kind of check the boxes. But we're not really taught to turn inwards, and that's a shift, I think, that I'm learning as a mother. What I want to teach my kids versus what I was taught. It's not about the outside, it's about the inside. And that sounds so unbelievably cliche. However, it's still hard, right? Because it's like this balance between sort of like what our internal soul is kind of craving and what actually fulfills us on a daily basis versus what kind of, I say reality, but like the outside world is the pressures that has on us, right? So as a working parent, you need to have certain things, like you need to have your cell phone, you need to have, all the kids have to do the activities, we have to pay for the after school, like there's those things. But then there's also the component to this of kind of slowing down, hopping off the treadmill, as I say, as these busy, crazy moms, because we're on hamster wheels all day long, and actually like turning inwards and tuning into what is important to us. And intention is something I talk about so much. And I talk about this also with the idea of, we live in a keeping up with the Joneses culture. So how do we sort of take all of those factors and make it work for us? I think so much of this comes down to worth, honestly, as women. Wow. And it, again, going many layers beneath the surface here, but I think there's so much there for myself and for so many other women around this feeling of unworthiness. That's why women struggle to receive money, and we don't necessarily advocate for ourselves for maybe asking for a higher salary or whatever it is, the same way men might do. That's why we struggle if someone gives us a gift, if someone gives us a compliment, right? Like we do struggle with that, with receiving. And a lot of that comes down to worthiness. And again, it's kind of slowing down and tuning in and doing that work that is uncomfortable and painful. And sometimes I just want to cry, right? Because it's so hard. But I think that's the only way to work through this.
No, you're right. You're absolutely 100% right. I don't think I would have learned any of the skills I've learned with money if I had not looked internally and really tried to figure out what was driving that void that I wanted to fill that I just couldn't fill. You know, no amount of shoes could fill that, even though I tried.
Correct.
I definitely tried.
Oh my gosh, we're not alone. And that's the biggest thing that I want to tell women. And I say this all the time in every episode. You are not alone. Listen, I am a financial planner. I just said, I have been in this industry for 18 years. I have a lot of experience. Guess what? I just overdrafted my checking account this week. We all make mistakes. I mentally forgot about a check I wrote 2 months ago that somebody waited forever to cash, and whatever. It happens. I just want people to know that it's okay and you're not alone, and we're learning. We're all learning, and we're never going to be perfect in this process. And if you're trying to, you're wasting your energy.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I think that we all tend to forget that we should be a little more forgiving to ourselves, because we're struggling with so many different facets of our life, not just parenting, but also ourselves and our family life, our married life, our friendships, things like that we tend to forget that we also need time for ourselves. We also need to forgive ourselves and sort of like shift our mindset to allowing ourselves to make mistakes. We're so busy coaching and parenting our others, we don't ever coach ourselves or parent.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest things I talk about a lot too. And actually I had, as a guest on my show a few months ago, I had Dr. Kristen Neff, who is the pioneer in self-compassion research. She's unbelievable. She's wrote a couple books. But I had her on because, again, we are so hard on ourselves. We are our own worst enemies. I mean, I can't tell you the number of nights I have stayed awake at night. My brain's just swirling, and I'm like, "You're so stupid, Megan. Why did you do that? Why can't you do it better?" We're all in this, right?
Yeah.
We're all experiencing the same stuff. And so one of the things that Dr. Neff talks about is there's 3 components to self-compassion. There's kindness, there's mindfulness, and there's common humanity. And the common humanity part is, again, I think the most important piece to me, because sometimes, especially as moms, right, we feel like we are just so isolated, like we're over here on this little island and nobody else is going through what we're going through right now. Nobody else is feeling what we're feeling. And we also feel like it's so hard to talk about things. It's so hard to ask for help. It's so hard to like voice it, right? So we close up and we feel so isolated. So just putting it out there and knowing that talking about those things. I bet you I'm not the only one that's listening to this podcast that's overdrafted in their checking account, right? So there's a lot of components to this, but I think self-compassion, using all of these like tools and techniques that we're talking about with just massive, massive amounts of self-compassion is so key. It's easier said than done, though. Believe me, I know. But I think it's important as mothers to do that. I think this is the most important piece as mothers, because our kids are watching. They're watching every move we make. And they're, my second grader is sitting here doing his math homework, and he's like, "Oh no, I messed up that." And I'm like, "No, it's okay, buddy. Like, it's totally okay. I mess up all the time too." And when you actually are able to tell them, "Hey, mom and dad are human. We're just like you. We make mistakes on different things all the time," then I just think that is the biggest lesson that they can learn. That is the most important thing.
It's funny that you say that, because literally this morning, right before drop off at school, my 6-year-old said to me, "I'm stressed," with tears in her eyes. And I said, "Oh, why are you so stressed?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Math." And I said, "Like math in school?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's just really hard." And I said, "Why do you think it's so hard?" And she goes, "Because I can't get it right. I always make mistakes."
Yeah.
And I realized right there that even at such a young age, it's so important for us as moms to tell them it's okay to make mistakes. We all do it. We're going to do it forever. Yeah. And it's important how we look at those mistakes, acknowledge we made them, forgive ourselves for making them, and then learning how to learn from them.
Yeah.
And I think that she got happy after I said that, because she felt like she was me, like we were together in a community, a group together, and that she wasn't alone. And I think what you're saying is so important, because so many of us forget. We're also so stressed out that we forget that they are watching us, and they do observe and absorb everything that we teach or that we don't teach or that we say. And so I love that you said that, because, common humanity, like you said before, isn't just with other moms. It's also with our kids too, and sharing that knowledge and sharing the ideas together so that they learn to grow and, sort of figure life out a little bit easier than we had to when we were younger, right?
Yeah.
The goal there.
Yeah.
So in relation to the common humanity, because I've never heard it placed that way, and I love how you said common humanity. It's going to be a phrase that I probably remember forever, by the way.
Great.
I spend a lot of time with other moms. I make a point to doing it. But one of the key things when I was a very young mom was that I didn't have any money. I had no money to be able to go do, even get coffee. Something as simple as paying $2 or $3 for a coffee. Back then, I was so worried about how I was going to feed my kids, I couldn't even afford to go. And that was my scarcity mindset, right? So talk to me about how we shift our mind from scarcity to abundance, right? And then what we need to know about money to help us continue that growth.
Yeah. So there's kind of two different components to this. Mind the dog.
Don't worry, I gotta talk
This
to you.
is real life. This is real life.
That's right.
One of the things that I say all the time is there's basic components to this financial education and financial empowerment piece. And one of those things is know your numbers, right? It's so important that we actually know what we own. Like, put together a very basic net worth statement. And if you don't know, talk to your family, talk to your spouse, like whoever it is, right? We want to be able to know what we owe and what we own and what we owe. So we've got, if you own a house, what's your mortgage on it? What's the rate on it, right? If you have these different retirement accounts or whatever it is, what does that look like? What's your debt situation? Do you have a car payment? Do you have student loans? Do you have outstanding credit card? Whatever it is, just put it all on a piece of paper. Because once you know, it's so much more empowering than not knowing, right? So we start there. And then you also want to know on the other side of this, the income and the expenses. And I say this to women all the time, right? So we have if we're working, we've got a salary, but what we take home is not that salary, right? We've got taxes, we've got other deductions that come out of that. So what is that monthly income? And more importantly, what's that monthly expense? And this is the piece where everyone starts to get really uncomfortable and nervous, because it's like we place judgment. We feel like we are being judged for the things that we're spending our money on. I just did it the other day. I went through my credit card and debit card expenses for the month, and I was like, why did I spend so much money at Target? What did I do? And, but we all do it, right? But what we need to do is do this from a place of no judgment and just finding out information, right? So once we know what's coming in and what's going out, then that's knowledge. Knowledge is power. Then we can work with it from there. Okay. So there's always things that we can reduce spending on. And that exercise starts, in my mind, with intention, values, and priorities, right? So values, there's all kinds of personal values exercises out there, but I think it's really important that, again, as part of that slowing down and tuning in exercise, we think about what's important to us, what actually matters. Okay, it's my kids. For me, my job, right? I like to run. So I always say this as an example. I'm going to spend money on a new pair of sneakers. I'll spend money on a new pair of sneakers because I know I'm going to get value out of it, right? I'm going to be using that. But then there's so many other things, right, that we spend our money on that don't align with those values. So that's why this, I think, is really important, because that's where we can start to kind of pick apart the things that aren't necessary. The other piece to this is, if it's important to us, we'll make it a priority, right? We always do. So we have to get real with ourselves, and we have to get serious and realize what matters to us. So if being social and going out with your girlfriends or whatever, going to get coffee or whatever it is, going out to lunch is important to you, make sure that that's first on your list of kind of your budget. Okay, you've got your mortgage, you've got the bills that you've got to pay. That's the non-negotiables, right? But then what are some of those other quote unquote discretionary items that are also non-negotiables in your mind that you couldn't possibly live without? Okay. I think about budgeting, it's such a has such a negative connotation. And I agree with that. It's like, we think of it as a society as like a diet, like it's restrictive. It's telling us all the things that we can't do. But let's start with the things that we can do and kind of back into it from there. Okay. So that's a very like basic thought I have on kind of high level of thoughts around how we want to approach where we put our dollars, but most importantly is we want to spend those dollars in alignment with what's important to us, our intentions, our values, and our priorities.
Very, very smart. I love that you said that. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that moms tend to put our own intentions, our own values aside for others more often than not?
Oh yeah, of course we do. Of course we do.
You think it's like that's maybe the reason why so many of us struggle with the money concept?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think we also get resentful of the people, right? Like sometimes I'm resentful of my kids because I give them so much, and I wish that I treated myself the way that I treat them. Of course we do. Of course we do. But I think having the knowledge that we're doing it is the first step. Self-awareness is like the biggest thing. I talk about this all the time. And when we wake up in reactive mode every day, which I wish I didn't, but I still do. I'm just going to say my kids are usually waking me up at 5:30 or whatever it is in the morning. And whether they have school or not, let's just face it. And I know so many other moms who can relate to that, but we're waking up and we're just like, okay, what do I have to do today? This is what I got. But and it doesn't have to happen like the second you wake up, but if you can just kind of like take a deep breath and put a little bit of thought into how do I want to feel today? What do I want? What's the person that I want to be today? How do I want to approach my day? Then it makes such a difference. It really does. I mean, it's so cliche and silly to say that, but it's made a difference in my life when I'm like, okay, I want to show up not as the crazy, overwhelmed, stressed out, depleted mom. I want to actually be the mom that's like engaged with my kids and not stressed out and feeling like I can conquer the day kind of thing. Not every day, believe me, but when I can start there and maybe have a couple days like that, then that's a good thing. But I think having the awareness that we're even in that place to begin with, and this is the person that we're projecting out into the world, is a good start. And then we can kind of back into the rest of it from there.
So I'm going to ask you this question because I go through it every day. I wake up in reactionary mode. I don't mean to. It's not an intentional thing, but I lose so much sleep overnight because I'm so stressed all the time.
Yep.
I never have a minute. I never have a minute to just breathe, to just think. And, I'm trying my very best to do it. But like you said before, it is a balance. It is a struggle to keep that balance as well. And so, one of the things that I noticed that you said is like self-awareness, right? What's something that you would tell me? Like, I'm a mom of 4. I'm always on the go, always reacting to something like a tantrum from the little ones or a tantrum from the older teenagers. Like, what's something that you would tell me to help me guide myself through this self-awareness process?
Yeah. So I would say start the day if you can. If you have any idea of there's any routines with the kids' sleep and all of that stuff, if you can take 10 minutes before the kids get up and you have to go straight into the chaos to just breathe, do a quick meditation or something like that. Like it to me, it makes all the difference. Again, like what I just said, ask yourself, how do I want to show up today? Right? What do I want the day to look like? Right? That's not necessarily going to look that way because there's so many things that come that get in the way of everything, right? It's crazy. But if you can start there, then I think that's a great start. And then the other thing that I like to do is sort of at the end of the day, just be like, okay, what actually went well today, right? I think, and that's part of this whole like gratitude piece. And we talk about gratitude and abundance and all of that stuff. But again, it sounds super cheesy, but if you can just, I've just started to do this over the last couple of weeks myself. If I can just say 3 things that actually went well today, like, hey, it wasn't a struggle to get my kid into the tub tonight. Or they got on the bus okay and didn't have a temper tantrum or whatever it was, right? Or I like crushed it in that meeting today or whatever it is, like just 3 things that puts you into, it allows your brain to start to focus on what did go well versus what didn't go well. And then I think it helps you kind of wake up in a little bit less of a, less of a reactive state, because your brain is like looking at what happened yesterday. Like, that went well. Okay, I can do that again today too, right? Yeah. And again, I'm not saying that it's perfect by any means. The other thing I was going to say is yes, we can take those like deep breaths at the beginning of the day, but you can also do it at any time during the day. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to just like step outside and either just like walk down to the end of the street or just like put my feet on the grass or something like that, and just connect with the outside to get out of my head and the emotions and the chaos, right? Because I'm somebody also, you've got 4 kids, and you're probably like this, but I'm a highly sensitive person. And when there's so much like noise and chaos and all these things coming at me, I get like sensory overload. So I just need to separate myself from it. And it's not only like the stuff outside, but my brain's spinning too. So it's like the chaos outside mixing with the chaos inside. And it's just, I can't reiterate enough how important it is to just make any effort you can to just slow down. I've actually had to, like, last night got a little crazy here, like right after bedtime, the kids were fighting over what they wanted to watch on TV, and my husband got in the mix of it. And I was like, I'm just gonna walk upstairs. I just need a minute. I just need a minute. And it doesn't make the problems go away, but it makes you a more, I don't know, stable person to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time. You know, I have, like I said, 4 daughters. So my youngest is 6, my next one is 9, my next one is 15, and my next one is 17. So if the teenagers aren't arguing together, then they're arguing with the little ones, or the little ones are arguing with each other, and it's just like a constant circle. Yeah. And that sensory overload that you talk about, it happens a lot. And I am very sensitive to it because, I can only handle so much. I've got my own chaos to handle, and then I've got the family chaos. And I tend to go outside in my garage, or I'll go into the yard, or I'll lay in my hammock and just stare up at the stars or something, just to reset my mind. And like you said, the problems don't actually go away. You still have to come back inside and sort of like finagle all of it. But you have like a calmer mind. You're a little bit more less stressed, I guess you would say. Yeah. And so I like that you said that, because I think so many of us go through that. We don't forgive ourselves for it. And we think that we shouldn't have that moment to ourselves for clarity, for peace, for just to reset our minds. So I think, thank you for saying that, because it's important to connect on that level as well.
Yeah. And I will add to that. I used to think that the answer to that question was like, well, I'll just go do an hour yoga class. But like, no. Yeah. No. I mean, and then I'd feel guilty about it, because I'm like, well, I don't have time for that. So that's the only way to do it. But it's not. Like, it's not. That's the perfectionist, the recovering perfectionist in me, going back to that black and white thinking, well, it has to be all or it has to be nothing, right? It's not. It's not. There can be little bursts of it in the middle of the day. Breathing in and of itself, just actually putting like awareness to your breath makes like, hey, I'm here, I'm out of my head, I'm into my body, I am breathing right now. I am not just it helps you to just realize like, hey, I'm not just a doer. I'm not just a list of tasks that need to be accomplished. I am a person. I can do this, right? I can do this. It's not always that smooth, but I think the more you practice it, the easier it gets.
Yeah. And the funny part about it is, like, I know we got a little off topic off money, but it all leads back to that as well. Because you need to be able to handle yourself and be able to do a reset to also think clearly about money. So even though we're talking about self-awareness, and maybe the listeners think, well, what the heck does that have to do with money? It does a lot. It has a lot to do with it.
It's all intertwined. I really believe that your relationship with money is parallel to your relationship with yourself. And how you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you act is exactly the same way. We don't just work in a silo, right? How we do one thing is how we do everything. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's my message that I'm trying to share into this world via the podcast, is that money is not completely separate from who we are. It's a part of who we are. And again, we can't avoid it. We deal with it every single day. So let's work with it rather than against it.
No, I love that because I think so many of us tend to separate like money, and then there's the rest of the things that we have to deal with, right?
Right.
So I think you talking about how it's combined, how it's intertwined, and how being self-aware and being intentional with ourselves as well as the people around us also has a direct correlation with money and how we react to money. Mm-hmm. So I love that you're teaching that because it's so important. I would have loved to have met you when I was 18, right? Hindsight being 2020 and what. But, I know that I still have a lot to learn about money, and listening to you, listening to your podcast definitely helps me. And so I love that you are doing this kind of work. It's very hard to find women in the financial sphere willing to share these tidbits of information that are so valuable. So let's talk about your podcast. I want to know, where I can find you, because I know Stitcher is like going away.
So the podcast is called Money Isn't Scary, which I think is a very appropriate title, right? For women to understand that it's not, we can get through this together. And that's exactly it. So you can find the podcast, it's on all the podcast platforms. So Google and Apple, and it's on Spotify and all of that stuff. So you can find it anywhere. I'm also on Instagram, just at Money Isn't Scary, and Facebook. I have a website, moneyisn'tscary.com, and I actually I'm doing some workshops this fall.
Really?
Yes, on some of these topics, things things that women need to know about money, and different things like that. So you can get the link on the website if you're interested in learning a little bit more.
I like that you're doing workshops. Wow, you're busy.
I am busy. I'm all over the place.
Are your workshops going to be in person, virtual, or both?
Virtual. I'm trying to do them as lunch and learns. So like once a month, maybe October, November, December. And just virtual online. You can get the link through Zoom, and there's a sign up link on the website as well. But yeah, just all in the interest of creating a community of like-minded women who want to get vulnerable and talk about this stuff, because I think we need that. We want to know that we're in a safe place to talk about money. And I can't reiterate enough how important it is for women to be talking about money. So I want to create a place to know that it's totally okay to be yourself, to admit all the mistakes, and know that none of us are perfect, right? So it's a community.
I love it. I love what you're doing. I really do. I think, first of all, I love the name, Money Isn't Scary. It's super inspirational. So thank you for creating that. And then I'm excited about your workshops. I can't wait to do one. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
I can send you the link.
Yeah. Well, you're going to send it to me, and I'm going to have it on this whole episode in the everything. Okay. So let's end this with a positive note. What's one thing that you would tell every mom, every woman out there about money that maybe we haven't heard so far?
I would say all spending is emotional, right? We think that women get this bad rap that we're not responsible with money because we're too emotional to be able to handle it. I like to flip that upside down because, hey, I'm an emotional person. Let's embrace it. All spending, anything money related is emotional. It just is. Every purchase. So as long as there's nothing wrong with us, right? Yeah. So I think that's something that women most importantly need to know. There's nothing wrong with us, right? And we're actually being emotional allows us to be more in tune and more intuitive and feel our experiences more, I think. Yeah. So I think it's a superpower, and I just want people to know that that they can embrace it. They don't have to worry about it. And it's not like you're a crazy person just because you're a woman and you get emotional, right? That's not it at all. It's a superpower.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So thank you so much for saying that. Don't be afraid of talking about money. And Meghan Dwyer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guests on my show. I really appreciate it. You have absolutely enlightened my mind, and I'm sure that our listeners will love everything that you have to say, including about your workshops. And there you have it, super parents. Another episode packed with joy, wisdom, and all the parental love in the universe. Remember to swoop back here every Wednesday for more parenting delights. Stay connected with our vibrant community on Instagram and Twitter at atomic_mommy. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube for more fantastic videos designed with you in mind. Craving more tips, guides, and the coolest parenting merch? Visit www.atomicmommy.com, where the fun never ends.